thinking about what you just laid before us and the work that has to be done, it makes me feel and think about the burden and the work that's shouldering, that Harris will be shouldering coming into this administration. Already she's coming into this thought of kind of this unifying project, this kind of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion type of project that she's going to be left with trying to mend and suture this understanding of bringing the country together and healing its wounds, racism, sexism, patriarchy, and the gamut. And I feel like this agenda here, it really is important to think about the role of Black women. Prior, during, and after this election, right? And that's what I was asked to kind of to think about, a meditation on the role of Black women in the election, and what perhaps the meaning of Vice President-elect Kamala Harris as a symbol of hope comes to mean to everyone. Um, this conversation, I think, really extends to our historical understanding of disenfranchised Black people and the vote, right? I mean, in 1870, the 15th Amendment gave African-American men the right to vote. In 1920, the 19th Amendment secured the franchise for women, but due to racial oppression of African-American women, they were overlooked and did not get to vote in significant numbers until around 1965 with the passage of the Voting Rights Act. This failure, we can't not overlook or think that it is not important to this particular moment, because these failures have continued on this ongoing battle to recognize the humanity of Black people, to exercise their right to vote, our right to vote, which was met with a massive voter suppression campaign led by conservative politicians and the current president at the moment. The first Black woman to express an aspiration to the vice presidency was Charlotte Rowan, a Black woman leader. She was a suffrage. She was a socialite. She would joke about that she would be a great vice president pick for the 1872 election. Harris, we might think about as a fulfillment of that particular dream that Roland had. She thought about what it would be like to be that one, that first, and what would she bring to the change, to a new democracy. Of course, that dream eluded Charlotte Bass, the first Black woman to run for vice president in 1952. Black women have always been a part of the political movement, of mobilization, from sororities to churches to on the ground movements. They've always had a part in the democracy, precisely why this election was so very important, especially when it's taken us back to the South to really think about the immediacy of what they were trying to say and do, especially with women such as Stacey Abrams. Right? Trump presented a very immediate need and attention to stand up and vote. This was absolutely important, especially in this election, as it marked record numbers for the first time. We have Black women who, alongside Vice President-elect Kamala Harris, according to the Center for Women in Politics, was tremendous in terms of numbers. 16 million Black women were eligible to vote this year, along with the first African women of African descent and women of Asian descent to win this office, vice president office. There was a record number of women of African descent who filed to run for congressional seats, and at least 130 of them were a part of that pool. Including the GOP candidate, Kim Klassen, who ran for the election to the U.S. House Senate, representing Maryland 7th district to fill the seat of the late, great Elijah Cummings. This was an important feat, especially the ways in which she was able to get numbers. Most, I guess, important here was a viral video was able to attract a lot of her voters, which also, I think, speaks to the way in which media and social media were used in this particular election. Many of us in 2018 probably remember how devastating the loss of the election Stacey Abrams ran in Georgia, when we watched the attempts to disenfranchise Black people who voting power was completely just annihilated in front of our eyes. Abrams, who worked in a coalition with other organizers on the ground, registered over 800,000 new voters. Her and Southern Black women are the true winners in this election. She, along with Atlanta Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, both HBCU graduates, understood in order to assist with Joe Biden and Harris becoming the next administration, that they had to get the votes. They had to go to the ground to make sure that people understood what was at stake, that voting was important here, the opportunity to stand with the mantra that Black Lives Matter was most important. And Black people did just that. As Harris ascends to the vice presidency in this country, her presence offers us many opportunities to dream and think about changing the narrative. I can say the night Vice President-elect stepped up to the podium in her all plums colored suit, a California native I am, I thought about what it meant for her to ascend to this particular role. Her appealing to every dream probably Black girlhood and Black girls and Black women think about. I had to myself access my own Black womanist bag while listening to Harris tell her story of being a child of immigrants from India and Jamaica to the United States Senate. Last year, I recall her emphasis on her California roots, where she launched her short-lived campaign for the presidential nomination, calling herself, quote unquote, a proud daughter of Oakland, as she stood before its city hall, not far from the hospital where she was born. I think she understood the importance probably of this kind of visual narrative that she painted for us, understanding the challenges that Obama faced with proving that he too was an American citizen, and that she is a proud daughter of immigrant parents. And what does that come to mean for her moving forward in this country and the work that she's going to have to probably do. When it became clear that she would ascend to the White House, she walked out in her all-white suit, formerly known as the Olivia Pope suit, now Vice President-elect Harris suit, to Mary J. Blige. And that marked a pivotal moment for some of us, right? Who understood that sound, that sonic development of Mary J. Blige coming through at that very moment meant something. It offered a symbol of inspiration, a message to us all, most importantly, thinking and centering Black women in that conversation. Now, she said, while I might be the first woman in this office, I will not be the last, because every little girl watching tonight sees that this country of possibilities, this is a country of possibilities, she said, end quote. During these remarks, she reflected on Black women who paved the way for her historical ascent, referring to Black women as, quote unquote, the backbone of our democracy. All of this is important, her invoking, her constant reminder, and situating the role of Black women, the inspiration, and that they're leaders, that we're leaders in this conversation is so important to the democracy, and precisely because we dare to dream and we keep dreaming. And I think that she is a product of that particular understanding of keep dreaming, and to end this nightmare that, you know, Donald Trump and the presidency have brought to the nation. It's still troublesome, right? When I think about this project that's before her, becoming this DEI, this chief of diversity and inclusion, what she's up to face. When you think about still today that white liberals, they overwhelmingly still stood up for Trump, as it was noted earlier in the conversation, voting, this idea of healing the nation, that she will seek to have to kind of bear the burden of, or shoulder the burdens of this kind of mission that remains, cleaning up the mess of what this administration will leave ahead. This kind of mammifying of her could be possible, something that, you know, we hope won't happen, but could be a part of one of the things that she will constantly have to work towards undoing and reworking. I think it was yesterday, I woke up and I turned on social media, Twitter to be exact, and Ayanna Pressley, she tweeted about her Black girlhood joy. At this moment, at this very moment, many people like her could not imagine that it would happen. She wrote of her excitement by noting her opening for Dr. Angela Davis. She wrote, quote, "When your morning begins with introducing Dr. Angela Davis and she opens with her remarks, the occupation has been defeated. Celebrate. But we cannot breathe the sign, a relief. This must be preambled for a new beginning. Have we learned the lessons revealed to us during this period?" Were her opening remarks. And I too think that these questions about celebratory understandings that, this is not the end, it's only the beginning. The work is still yet to be done. And I ask, I suppose, to the panel, how do we envision next steps? What's next, not just for this presidency, but for us as well, especially as a community within Ithaca?